Hey everybody, this is Sheet. Sorry about that. And we're going to be taking our, I don't want to say our first look, but our, I guess, Friday morning, late Thursday night look at some lineups. And what we're going to do is do our first look at the Sims with respect to winning the big GPP. Um, let's first, though, create, just a couple of lineups based on what we've talked about that we think make sense. Okay, so again, I'm back and forth between whether I want to lock in Pantoja or not in the big GPP, but I certainly think that he's got to be in pretty much all the big buy-ins. So that's kind of a sure thing. Um, in addition to that, one of these two, as we've been discussing, Landwehr or Choi, should make it into the big buy-in. So that looks good. And then it looks as though, we should choose between any or all of these good underdogs that we've been talking about pretty much all week, between Durden, Sterling, and Chiesa, and secondarily, Luque. Okay. So any lineup that really has these two or Pantoja Choi with any kind of combination of these is going to kind of get my blessing. And as you can see, just kind of by doing the math here, like this lineup with all the underdogs leaves 2,300. So you'll remember that we do like all of these big favorites between Hooper, Mitchell, and Kennedy, uh, Reyes, and Rachmanov. So you'll see that 2,300 gets you to any or all of these guys, no matter which one of these guys you drop. Okay. Um, if even if you drop, the only thing you don't get if you drop Sterling, you can't get to Hooper, but that's about it. Okay. Everything else is fair game. So um it's really up to you and up to me. I mean, I can't really distinguish between all four of these guys. All five of these guys, really, these five big favorites. I mean, I could distinguish between them. I mean, you could say that, I mean, Hooper might have a bigger ceiling, but then Mitchell too. And Njoku, he's got that good first round one prop. Rachmanov's got the 5 rounds to work with. Reyes has a really good inside the distance line. So any of these five get my blessing. So that's what you should really be doing is playing Pantoja with Landwehr. And then, you're obviously not playing all four of these, but just picking your favorites. And I like all of these. I mean, really, maybe, you know, Luque is the least appealing, I guess. And then you could literally fill all these things in, and you'll leave money on the table, but I think that's fine. These are solid lineups that will allow you also to get somewhat different. The only thing that we're not really getting here is is battle. Well, I mean, you could play battle here and leave 1,200 on the table. That's pretty different, actually. But let's see just for fun if we can actually get. See, you can't. What I was gonna say is you can't get two studs. Like you can't get battle and even the lowest one. Actually, this one you can get. So this is the one lineup that you can get with two semi studs. If we're going to consider Battle a stud, which he really isn't, he's definitely a little bit lower than these guys. But you can get Reyes and Battle if you go for the cheapest of the two. So that's something again that you could do if you wanted to. Um, the only other thing we didn't talk about is if you wanted to use Garimbo, like that helps you. So if you did want to play Garimbo, for example, then you could actually get up to Reyes, and we could also get up to Rachmanov, right? So if you played Garimbo instead of Battle. So all these lineups that I discussed like this, starting with Pantoja and Landwehr, with all these combinations, I think they're all good for 20 max. I mean, all of them. So just really pick your favorites. Um, Now, if you decided to go Choi instead, now again, he's definitely the worst of the of the plays, but you're definitely going to get a little bit of leverage there. So if you went to Choi, then as you can see, it's you get again, it's the same type of shuffling, between Garimbo, Hooper, and if you went down from Hooper to Mitchell, then Garimbo can become Battle, almost can become Battle. So again, you do get some benefit of playing Choi. So, in 20 max and below, I'm really going to be recommending you do this. You play Pantoja, one of these two, and then shuffle these guys that we've talked about pretty much all week with these big favorites. Okay. Um, that means you're not going to be playing any of these big underdogs, no Gracie, no Guida, no Bresky, no Machado, no Smith, no Volkov. Uh, you're not going to get to Randy Brown. You're not going to play any of the 8K fight, you know, with Randy with the Weidman and Anders. You're not playing Max Griffin. You're not getting to Joshua Van. We talked about that a little earlier today. And Evloev again, I've just never been a big fan of that play this week. And listen, the heavyweight fight fading it. It's talked about this earlier. It's a little scary, honestly. But in 20 max, that's kind of what you want to do. Now, what's going to be interesting is how to deal with this, the 150 max. Like how do we win all the cheese? You're not going to be able to do it by playing those lineups I just mentioned because the lineups I just mentioned are just going to be too obvious and chalky. I mean, they just are. What I noticed about all of that is nothing particularly earth-shattering. I think everybody's going to come up with stuff like that. You could play those combinations I kind of alluded to. You could play those that are, maybe leave money on the table because those could be a little bit unique, but nobody in that whole group is going to be particularly low owned. I mean, I would say that probably Choi would be the one to get the most leverage. I think that would make sense. And then maybe Luque, he'll be the lowest of them. But I mean, let's take a look before we just build the 150 set using the Sims. What the projections and the ownerships look like, and this is the first we've looked at this. And before I even run these Sims, I'd like to just look at Saber Sim and see if I kind of agree with all this. And based on what we've been talking about, this law looks pretty reasonable. All five of these, Pantoja looks like an amazing play at 8,800. He's projecting just about as well as anybody. And then all these five big favorites all look pretty reasonable. I mean, SaberSim has Rachmaninoff a little higher than I might, but then again, it's because they're giving him 5 rounds, so that makes sense. With the exception of that, I think everything else is very, very logical. Okay. I think that I would have nothing bad to say about the rankings. Maybe I would boost Battle a little bit. Maybe give him a little bit closer to Dominic Reyes. Um, just because again, when you look at the inside the distance line, I think what was Dominic Reyes was minus 130 or something, and Battle was plus 110. So I think it's probably closer than this. So maybe we'll go ahead and up that a little bit. And considering also, I mean, I guess battle related to Gon, I think makes sense though. Maybe Garimbo. No, I'm pretty impressed. I mean, with these projections, I don't disagree with much of any of it. Um, is Anders a little bit frothy? I mean, like, shouldn't Anders be a little bit lower relative to Evloev? Probably. Landwehr, um, maybe should be higher than Anders. Yeah, that is definitely something that I would suggest. So that's a change I might consider making. Landwehr higher than Anders, and if that's the case, we probably should make Choi a little bit higher also. But what's important is you see these underdogs here, like Chesa, Choi, Durden. These are the highest rated underdogs by a decent amount. Like Akura, even though he has 5 rounds, he's below. And then after that, it's Griffin, Weidman. Luque is a little thin. I'm a little low. I might consider upping Luque a little bit. You know. But aside from those things, this looks pretty good. So again, what we're going to use SaberSim for is to give us some guidance on playing the big GPPs. Okay, so we're not gonna first things first. We're not gonna lock anybody in. We're not gonna, make a group of that Landwehr fight yet. We're not gonna upgrade the projections yet. First thing I want to do is literally just run this thing. But before I do that, let's upload our entry file to from DraftKings. And we already did put dummy lineups in so that we would know who we're playing. I mean, so we know what contests we're playing. And so we put it into SaberSim, and this will allow us to screw around with these lineups after we build them. So the first thing I want to do is not make any changes and build 5,000 lineups. And what we're trying to do in this particular contest is thread that needle between finding lineups that have a chance to win and finding lineups that nobody's playing or not that many people are playing, which is, I mean, it's certainly not easy. Okay. So it looked like it went really fast. I want to do this one more time. Okay, let's build these again. That just seemed awfully fast. But it looks like it's on it. Maybe it did it already in the background because it used the SaberSim projections. So let's take a look and see what we get when we do nothing other than just kind of run the SaberSim thing. Let's just take a look at the exposures and see what we get here. And as usual, it kind of depends on how we rank everything. So right now we're looking at this MMA default setting. So for those that have not seen this before, what that is, you can click into the eyeball here and see what it means. Without getting too deep into the weeds here, the two key functions are this 99th percentile outcome of the lineup. That is important if you want upside to get this metric in, and 0.75 times that is pretty aggressive. And then they ding the ownership a little bit, minus zero point 0.1, not that aggressive, but not that bad either. And then obviously some of my projection is self-explanatory. So when we're looking at it, this is how these things are being ranked. And, not surprisingly, all these guys that we've been talking about all week are showing up as the highest owned plays. I mean, look at it straight down the list, with the exception of Gary. Gary's the one fighter who's getting in here with at 31% with more than I would have expected or more than I would like. The other thing that you'll notice, I think, is where is Landwehr? Hang on. So right now, where is Landwehr on this list? I must be just hallucinating. Where is Landwehr? Is he out somehow? No, I'm getting only 5% Landwehr. So that's not going to work. You know, I mean, we were thinking of locking in that fight, and we're getting 5% Landwehr, and how much Choi, by the way, and 26% Choi. There's no universe where we're going to be playing 5% Nate Landwehr. Okay, and the reason why that's happening is again that median projection that it is basing its sims off of is just too low, I think. So we are going to make changes to Landwehr's projections, particularly to make sure that that doesn't happen. Okay. Uh, so what we could do, we could do this now, or we can wait. Let's go ahead and do this now. Let's go back to the um um back to the numbers. Now, what we could do instead of that, since we do want to make this rule that we want to play just as somebody from Landwehr Choi fight, is we could set a rule that says I want, 60% Landwehr and 40% Choi or vice versa, something like that. And you could certainly do it that way. Now, again, this is not the way I not usually play, but I usually don't come up with these locked in things. I usually kind of let the Sims kind of take over at this point, especially for this tournament. But boy, oh boy, I mean, I don't know if I could justify having only 5% of that guy. So maybe what I'll just do is I'll just do a minimum exposure of, say, what, 35% maybe? But I do want to have a good amount of that fight. So what would happen if I went and I did a minimum exposure of Landwehr? Uh, so this is, again, this is going to be my cross to bear, right? This is my take that's going to use to override what I'd be getting otherwise. And listen, it's usually not the best idea, but so you make him a minimum of 35%, and then we'll make Choi a minimum of 25%. So at the very least, we're having 60% exposure to this fight. And since Landwehr is the favorite, let's give him a little more. And he's going to be higher owned also, so you don't have to get as much of Choi, I think, to be over the field. Um, so why don't we do 35 and 30? No, I think 35 and 25 or let's just keep it at this. So let's keep these as our only rules, our only min exposures are going to be Landwehr and Choi, because if we didn't do that, we'd be getting just way too little of what I've been saying the whole week is kind of a key fight. So let's rebuild these. Now we could have done it the other way. We could have started from that 5,000 lineup set and just did min exposures that way. And you know what? That is probably a better idea now that I think about it, because at least from here, right? Let's go back to this one to build one. At least we started with 5,000 lines that we knew were good. So now let's actually do that. So let's go Choi from here. I think it is better to do it this way. For Choi, we'll go, well, let's go to what's his name first? Landwehr first. We'll go minimum exposure 35. And then what's his name? Where's Choi? Choi will do minimum exposure 25. And then we just hit apply, and then we're good. Okay. So now we're getting, sort of what we want here. Okay, 35 and 25. Okay. So we're locking it in, but again, we're playing for the 150, so we can't be quite as restrictive. So now that we've done this, now we have exactly the type of, of construction, that represents our projections and what we've liked all week. So what you could do, I mean, if you want, you could just go throw this 150 in, or and just get right after it. The only issue is going to be is whether you're duplicating yourself too much. And you don't really know. Okay. But there are ways to kind of check. And we'll get to that. The other type of setting I want to look at after MMA default is this Sim Diversity 10. So Sim Diversity 10 is another way that Saber Sim ranks these fighters. And just to kind of get into what that is, it's a little, let's just say it's a little less aggressive than MMA default. Okay. But the good thing is that that's not going to change much with respect to our outputs. You're still going to get the same guys that we've been talking about all week. The only thing is that you're getting 25% like Eric Anders, who we talked about we didn't really want to play, you know. But again, when you're playing 150 maxes or whatever, you don't want to be too restrictive. And like, see here, you're getting very, very little of the Bryce Mitchell. Okay. Um, so we could go ahead and put these in, and this will reflect our leans, but it will, but we're letting SaberSim sort of do its thing. The next thing we can take a look at is what happens when we run the contest sims. Now, when we look at the contests here that we're entering, it already created these field lineups for us, which is SaberSim's, prediction of what they think the field is going to do. So what we do is we will run our 5,000 lineup set against all of these contests. And then instead of looking at our lineups, sorted by those two Saber score metrics, we're going to look at it sorted by, ROI relative to that specific contest. Now, we're not going to worry about the big buy-in stuff. I'm only going to show you the lottery stuff, and I'll see. Let's see if it's any different, and let's see what the delta is between what we'd be getting otherwise and what we'd be getting when we're actually simming our lineups against the alleged field lineups. Let's take a look. Almost done here. Okay. All right. So you see it kind of like shift around a little bit. So let's take a look at it by, instead of Sabershore or anything, we'll look at target contest. We'll look at the special by ROI. Okay. So when we sort by ROI after simming it, you do see a couple of things different, but not that much. You're still getting a bunch of Pantoja. Okay. You're still getting these guys we've been talking about all week, but only that Joshua Van kind of shows up a little bit more. Um, um, so, uh, so there you are. you know. So the question then is, are any of these kind of portfolios good enough to put in the 150? Well, again, it depends on how aggressive you want to be. In other words, these are all good lineups, and they're all been designed, to take advantage of Saber sims and algorithms to get you good high ROI. But I just wonder if we should make sure that they're not too highly owned or that they're not duped too much. So this is where some really heavy duty guessing, well, some people say science, some people say guessing, whatever kind of comes in here. So how do we figure out which of these lineups rate to be duped? Well, I mean, we could say that it's more likely than not that salaries closer to 50,000 are more likely to be duped. I guess that makes sense. We could also can say that lineups which are rated or projected to be highly owned, okay, are going to be duped. So how do we test for that? Well, the first thing we can do, which is actually kind of neat, is we could download these. I want to download these and I want to see something. So these are 162 lineups. So what this is going to show you is these lineups over here and these other metrics, which SaberSim is kind of guesses and messes around here, where it guesses how many dupes each of these lineups are going to have. So like if you wanted to, for example, you could go in and go to data, filter, and then if you went to, where is this again here? So sim dupes for not the knockout special. We want where is that thing? Not the contender. Wait, triangle, knockout special. Yeah, knockout special. No, that's the 100. That's the 20. That's the 50. It's the 555. Not the contender. Not the world champion. Okay, here it is, the special. So if you sorted these by sim dupes, you could see that some of these lineups are, rating to be duped like six times or so from the set of 5,000 that we created. Um, here's a little trick. I think this is all very understated. In reality, like a lot of these lineups are going to be higher owned than this, and more duped for a number of reasons. But what you can do if you wanted is you could just filter out the highest duped of these lineups. Okay. Um, Now, when you do that, you're risking losing your rules. Like maybe I'm not going to get 35% landwear anymore, 25% landwear anymore. And the other thing you could argue is this, if you sort these things by ROI, it should be factoring in the dupes, right? So you're probably doing it twice, you know? Um, so that's something to consider. The other thing is what you can do from here. Let me just see if you can do it actually from here. Do they have geomean here? Does not look like they do. Yes. So what you could do is you could sort these by geomean as well. And all geomean is kind of a calculator, I guess, that will guess, how many. Well, it's not going to guess. Like geomean is a number that represents the product of ownership, but the geomean calculator will tell you what geomean you need to avoid being duped an X amount of time. So, and again, this is art, not science. But let's go into geomean and let's put some data in. So in this tournament, right, we're gonna have what is this, 23,529 people? Is that right? Yeah, 23,529. So what that means is that if you want to say limit this to say maximum of 5 dupes, you're going to want a geo mean of 24.4 or less. So what you can do then is you can search for these geo means that are less than 20, that are more than 20, they're less than 25 or whatever. So we'll sort by geo mean, and you could X these out if you want. But again, with everything comes a cost. You know what I mean? Um, if you just sort by geo mean, you might be giving up ROI also. So what you can do is, you could just, first of all, you could eyeball it. You could say, okay, which geo mean or which lineups with high geo means are also not that great as far as projected ROI. Um, and where's the ROI for this? Or win rate, But here, 100K to first ROI. So if we list these by largest to smallest, and let's say, I just want to show these all this way. Where was GeoMean over here? Let's see. GeoMean. So like, let's say I wanted to hide these. Let's uh hide all these. Um oh, I what not that special, did I? Right. We see what I'm trying to do. I want to put these next to each other so I can see what the high geo means that are not rated high by ROI look like. But in general, I mean, I've been trying everything to, you know, do pushes and pulls and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, ROI is supposed to sift through all that, and it's supposed to account for all that. Um, so what you could do is this. You could take stuff that's a high ROI with a dupe and get rid of it, for example. But technically, the ROI is supposed to be representative. It's supposed to take into account. the possibility of being duped, you know? Um, so, um, so what do we do with all this? I mean, I'm probably inclined to just kind of go with one of these sets that we just kind of created. Okay. We're already sorting by ROI. So, like I said, it's supposed to take into account, all of that stuff. But I'll share one other trick again that I don't think is being talked about. Well, it started to be over the last year or so, but I alluded to this a couple of days ago. Whenever you have this fight that you sort of want to lock in, like Landwehr and Choi, or what were some of the other good fights? I think it's not a real good example of it on this particular card, but whenever you have, two guys you want to lock in, what you can do if you know that one of them is going to be more popular, especially the favorite, you could play the underdog and you can leave money on the table. Well, actually, you want to use that technique when you think the underdog is going to be really popular. So it doesn't really apply here either. So it's not a lot of funny business, I think, that that's going to be done here. Okay. I think we're just going to end up playing what we think are the best plays and let the ROI sort just kind of work it out. Um, but again, what we're not doing is like Xing out fighters. We're not Xing out all those fighters that we wanted to X out. We're playing the 150 max. We have to get combinations with, with some of these guys, just because if we just use the best plays, they're just going to end up being too popular. And that's just the way it goes. Okay, so I don't know again exactly what combination of these things I'm going to use. And maybe I'll do one more follow-up a little later on once we get more, once you get more data. But that's for the most part going to be the end of the process. The only thing I might do again is should I just lock in? I mean, I could go ahead and do that, right? I can just lock in Pantoja, but I think 70% of them is just fine. And do I want to play this much Rachmanov instead of an only 21% Bryce Mitchell? You know what? I'm letting the Sims just kind of drag me in that direction. I do think that Bryce Mitchell has the possibility of potential of really putting up a big number though. So you know what I'll do? I'll make sure to play that in the big buy-ins. Okay. Okay, I think that's pretty much all I'm going to have. If I do one more follow-up, that would be great. I'll let you guys know. I might do a betting breakdown as well tomorrow. And for now, that's probably going to do it.